Welcome to What the Frac. We are your fractional team, and today we break down marketing trends, strategies, and tactics in 30 minutes or less so that you can do the fun stuff like be creative.
Hi, Tamara.
Nicole, I love our live shows.
Oh, they're the best. They feel so authentic to who we are. They feel so authentic to the conversations that we have with people on a daily basis. And I think that's how we started thinking through them, right, Tamara? Like me and you sat down and we were like, I wish we could take our conversations that we have with amazing experts, with entrepreneurs, with people that we're mentoring and give them to the masses because they're so valuable.
Yes. And one of those conversations that I've been having a ton of talks about recently is this question. Is it more important to have a mindset first or strategy first? So like a stellar mindset or a stellar strategy. Nicole, what do you think?
Ooh, that's so hard. I mean, not to like take the easy route out, but I think you have to have both. And both of them have to have both, and you have to have room to grow in both. I think that you're going to change. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out a different answer today, though.
Yes. So I will say my answer is mindset. I think a positive mindset is everything that you need in order to build good strategies. You need that mindset. You need those habits, everything. And then your strategies fall in place. That's my opinion. And
it's just a big topic. It's such a big topic. Anyway, sorry.
So because I've been having these conversations, I actually wanted to bring in my mindset coach. So without further ado, let me introduce who we are talking to today. So today's guest is a true force of nature, equal parts strategist, healer, and visionary. Stephanie Trager is a lawyer, medicine woman, executive coach, and conscious futurist who has spent 25 years guiding leaders, entrepreneurs, and the next generation to unlock their deepest capacity for impact. So from frontline activism and environmental justice to advising Fortune 100 CEOs and impact investors, Stephanie blends high-level business and legal acumen with powerful transformative tools, helping change makers align with who they are and the legacy they want to build. Today, we're going to be diving into activating capacity and how clear outdated beliefs, mental blocks, and hidden patterns that silently cap your growth, how to rewire for expansion, personally, professionally, and collectively. So, Nicole, you want to dive in?
I'm so excited, and I'm going to add Stephanie here to the conversation. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello, beautiful women. My goodness. I feel like it's like stepping into a blazing fire.
I love that. I like that visualization. It's so good to have you on the show. So I was just telling everybody that you are actually my mindset coach, and that this is a conversation that I have been having a lot recently with people, that mindset is so important in order to grow your business, your personal life, basically do anything you want to do. Your mindset has to be first and foremost, and then other things fall into place. But you know what? Maybe other people disagree with me. So let's hash it out. Let's talk about it. So Stephanie, I know one of the things that you have been really working with people on, including myself, is activating capacity. Can you explain what that is and why it matters?
Yeah, such a cool tee up, because I'm thinking about the conversation around mindset first or strategy. And I would say it depends, right? It really depends who and where you are in the journey, because, what's the mindset you need for a specific strategy? Or maybe you need the mindset before you can even craft the strategy. So I think it's, as I always look at things, and especially in this question around activating capacity, it is not linear. It's not always linear, this or that first, because we really live in a non-linear universe, and we've created a reality that's super linear. And so what happens when we step outside of that line? And that is where I look at activating capacity. So you might have a stellar mindset, you might have a stellar strategy, and yet some subconscious program or past experience has you capped like your bandwidth for capacity is capped. And it's not necessarily a mindset thing. It could really be like your nervous system literally needs to expand its capacity to hold more. That makes sense?
Yeah. That's actually something a concept I've never heard of before, like someone speak about, especially in the mindset world. But, we all hear about mindset. We all hear about changing the way you say, I can't do this, or, I can't believe I have to do this, and change it to, I'm lucky to be able to do this, like all of those kind of things. But I think that activating capacity, talking about like your nervous system and how much capacity you have based on your past experience and limiting beliefs, it's such a concept that I think so many people are going to be able to relate to, and no one's talking about. So how did you get to this spot where this is your, I don't know, this is your thing, this is what you speak about?
Well, it's not been linear at all. I'll say that, and I love what you created here with What the Frac. And I'm sure if folks are in the fractional world, it's so much around identity, right? Like even our capacity and so the mindset, our belief of who we are, right? Do we cap our capacity off by some identity we've stuck ourselves into, or some, or we haven't stretched into the identity of the thing that we are actually birthing? And how do we do that? Part of it is expanding our capacity. Part of it is maybe mindset and it's all the things. And how I got here, well, which version? I was very young when I realized, like, this world is not what they're telling us. I was very young when I realized, like, what I was a baby. I actually died. I had a burn as a baby, 17 months old, and I died. And I remember actually coming back into the world and choosing to stay here. And like, oh my gosh. So growing up, I couldn't really make sense of things. I'm like, but this isn't the reality. This isn't it. Like, it's not just this. There's so much more. And so that was just the beginning of my lifelong quest for me, understanding who am I and what are we really here to do, and what is this reality when we're really perceiving such a tiny bandwidth of absolute reality, and and how can we activate our capacity to perceive more? So that's been my lifelong question.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting when you talk about limiting beliefs, and you talked about your identity and how that affects your capacity. What I'm hearing and experienced myself is that we have, people call it imposter syndrome now, right? As well, where it's like, okay, I believe that I am this right now, and that has a limit to what you can achieve. So if I believe that I'm only a small business owner, but the business could actually grow really big, but I don't believe that I can do that, right? I'm just a small business owner. I don't source globally, or I don't, that's a limiting belief. And if you can see yourself differently, all of a sudden your capacity grows. Am I understanding that correctly, Stephanie?
Yeah.
So from being I'm just a small business owner to know I'm a global entrepreneur, and I'm going to be scaling this year, 50%. And then you embody that. Well, your capacity has grown and your nervous system has grown, right?
Yeah. And if it's not, you're like aware and tapped into, okay, this is actually what's happening. So when you feel that contraction, or you pull back, or self-sabotage, all the old patterns, when we we're self-aware of those patterns, when we're actually choosing, when we're in that like agency of saying, I am choosing to shift my identity. I'm choosing to be the one. I'm choosing to be the global, whatever. We're making up every minute of our lives. Every story that we tell is the outcome. I say this all the time, right, Tamara? Every story we tell is the outcome. So being so mindful about the words and the labels that we give ourselves. And in reality, it's like we have the capacity and the freedom. You go into LinkedIn and change your title any day. You can make it up. We can do that whenever we want, and then say, okay, well, who do I have to be, and what do I have to be aware of in order to live into this now? Am I really choosing this? Yes, all in. Okay. Do I need support? Do I need my mindset? Do I need my nervous system? Do I need a shaman? Do I need a strategist? What do I need?
Yeah. I think
that's like the hardest thing, right? Like believing it.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot to go with identity. And one of the things that I see at the age that I am and, being in entrepreneurship, one of the things that I've been seeing that kind of fits, but it's a different narrative is, you talked about a death experience, not even near death. But like as we grow and as entrepreneurs are starting to grow and starting to build, larger mindsets, or maybe they're reading through books and they're doing personal development, they're going through tragedies in their life, right? I had a near death experience that had started to kind of a medical emergency that kind of started this idea for me. And I have a friend who's an entrepreneur who just went through a really tragic family death, right? And what I'm starting to see is this idea that our identity might be changing, but our business, we're almost outgrowing our businesses, and we're stuck in this idea that our business has to be this thing that can't change. So I guess it's not a question, but I guess it is a question, is like, are you seeing this, and how does identity fit into the strategy in which you grow your business? Like, I think that we're getting stuck in our identity is not fitting our business. How does that kind of align? How do you help that?
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, that background. I think this is a beautiful place to inject authenticity, right? It's like, what is the piece that holds us back from stepping into our most authentic selves? And is it the fear of, oh my gosh, if I change my brand, I'm all over the place, I'll lose. What am I going to lose? Am I going to lose my audience? So it's kind of stepping up when we're ready to expand and change. What are the fears we're bumping into? And you know what? Another one I love to say is these stories, our life experience. Say our story is our medicine. It is. And it's like, well, if our business is capped or stuck, or we're not expanding into the identity of the thing that we're birthing, then what part of our story wants to be seen? What part of our story needs for us to embody it and honor it and share it? Now, we don't have to, I'm not the fan of sharing, your dirty laundry everywhere. It's obviously super discernment. So I think that this moment we're in, where everyone is sharing everything, and there's just so much. I think each of us are needing, and I'll speak for myself too, I know that I'm needing more of, okay, what part of my story is my medicine right now for this next expansion that I'm stepping into? And what part of that is going to be helpful for others to hear and helpful for my business to hear? It's like our business has a soul. So you asked Nicole, like, what do we need to shift the business? The business has a soul. And so am I tending to the soul of my business? Am I tending to my soul? And as a leader, how does that land?
Yeah, no, I mean, Tamara, I think that, like, I just had this conversation. I feel like I have this conversation a lot. And me and you, as we start to grow at the Frac and our personal, experiences come into play, and social media, and how do you tell your story without going over that line? And where is the line to telling too much? And what pieces really help? I feel like I've had this conversation. I've had it 3 times in the last week with people about how do you be authentic without, and also be private, right, out there. And I think that it really comes back to who your audience is and what's that goal? Who are you trying to build an emotional response and relationship with? And how does that authentically come through in your story? But it's something that has to be come up with or decided upon in yourself, and not necessarily just because another influencer is out there crying on social media doesn't mean you have to be out there crying on social media, right? I don't know, Tamara, does that feel? I feel like we've had this conversation before.
So much. And it's a personal struggle that I'm going through right now, and going back out and being online and being, on social media more. It's how do you show up, quote unquote, as your authentic self, without, like, I don't want to put my kids online. I don't want to be, like, there's like these boundaries that I have. But I think what was standing out to me, and what both of you are saying, and kind of looking at what Stephanie said about story, a lot of times in marketing, we talk about marketing so much on the show. we always are trying to say, well, what does our customer want? And how do we make us, our brand, our product fit them? Which there's so much truth in that. But this is a whole new way to look at it as a leader, as a business leader, is first and foremost, what is your story? What are you telling yourself? How are you being authentic to yourself? And what do you want to build? And then attract the people that attracts, which is a little bit different and almost feels like it helps so much with burnout and passion and all of these different things that we're just seeing epidemics of, like quiet quitting. Because if you're building something just totally for someone else, it doesn't fit your story. Or Stephanie, as you say, like that, your story's your medicine. So it's not resonating with you. So I'm really interested in this idea of, okay, how do we create the mindset, the story, the capacity for things that are authentic to ourselves? And then that attracts the business customers. It builds the business. It's something that then you're passionate about, you're excited about, it grows. That right now is my question to try and solve.
Yeah. Well, I think there's so many versions of this, right? Like you see people who are choosing to show everything about their life, like that's their brand. And then there's people who are choosing to speak to one tiny niche, and then when people are, say, influencers where it's such a huge audience, then there's just more, it seems like there's more space to show up. So I always think, what am I most scared of? I mean, I'm on this journey too. And I think it's always like our fears that are being so mindful, like create a little altar, put a little stone for each fear, have a conversation, because you might come up with that answer, Tamara, and is it informed by fear, a fear of losing something, a fear of judgment, a fear of whatever. And so getting really, really, I think this is the mindset piece about getting really honest with ourselves around not only what we want to create, who we're speaking to, what are we most scared of? And then asking ourselves, like, wait, so this decision I'm making about how I want to show up, is there any fear in here? Like, am I making this decision based on any fear?
Yeah. And I think that, we throw around the word authenticity. I feel like that word is being thrown around so much right now. And I think going back and really taking a step back and figuring out what that actually means in the world right now. So for me, what I've seen working in marketing and with businesses and all of that is that our society has taken a huge shift towards digital and virtual, and especially with COVID and the lockdowns and everything, it went even faster towards that space. And everything became this pretty curated life that we all have. And I think that if you look at the human experience of what audiences and people want, we are craving, there's the loneliness epidemic. There's, people, the depression and things like that, people not feeling connected, a lack of community. All of those pieces are people wanting to connect to the human experience, which is connecting to each other. And so I think authenticity, when we're talking about it, either in business or in personal brands, we're talking about whatever that looks like to make sure people know you're human, right? What is that connection that makes you human? And that could be anything from telling your deepest, darkest fears and emotions to you are a very curated, perfect person, and maybe you stumble on a word and we don't edit that out of the video. And so I think that really figuring out how you become human to people is what authenticity, at least for me, has been looking like.
I actually, so I do also have a podcast, and there was a time about 2 years where I was navigating a concussion, like I healing from a concussion experience. And I listened, and one of the videos was like blowing up the other day, and I went back to listen to it because this person has grown in his journey. And I was like, oh my God, that was right after this head injury experience. And I was stuttering the whole time. I was like, should I take it down? I heard that voice and like, nope, you know, and part of that is also honoring ourselves, you know, honoring we're all human. And when we chip away at that, we and dehumanize ourselves, we suffer. I think we suffer too. One thing I wanted to share that I look at authenticity like an energy. Any of these words, identity, purpose, authenticity, these words that are like the zeitgeist words, right? But they somewhat put pressure. They start out really with well-intentioned, like, what's my purpose? And now shame on you if you don't have a purpose. And now you have to have a brand if you have a purpose, you know? And so I think authenticity is partially entering that field, right? And so how do I look at like, what does it mean in its purest form, authenticity? And I think of it as like a divine energy. It's like, it's just pure, it's divine energy. And it's always coming back to that place of what's pure here, what's real.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I feel like, I feel like something else you said that I don't want to just brush to the side, which is, I think in our society, at least in the entrepreneurial and business world, there's this push to like, what, you don't have a passion? What, you don't have a new project? What, you don't have, you know, I've met a few people who have said, I want to become an entrepreneur. What are my next steps? And it's like, okay, what's your why? And they don't know, but they feel like they have to come up with it right this second. And I think there is a little bit of authenticity in your journey of figuring it out. Like, you don't need to know it now. And I think that we like pressure children way too young to like want to know what they're going to be and who they are and all of that. And I know for me, like, I've gone through a few identity crises in my young 35 years on this planet. And like, it's always interesting to me to feel, and I just went through a concussion situation. I'm still going through it now. And like, every time those things come up, how we change and how we move and who we become is something that, like, if you look back, you could be like, oh, I stifled that because I needed to figure out my passion too quickly. Right. So I think that there is a beauty in your journey, and that could be part of your finding your passion. So not going too fast is what I'm saying. But Tamara, I think this is, first off, I understand why you work with Stephanie. She's amazing. What has been your biggest breakthrough since working with her?
Well, it's really interesting. And so, you know, when I started the journey with Stephanie, I knew that I had to level up. So when you talk about capacity, I had just finished some very big projects, and I knew that I wanted to do something bigger. But I also knew that I was at a plateau, and I didn't know how to get off that plateau. And so it was the first time that I started working. This year has been the first time that I've started working with coaches, really tapping into mentors. Like, it's actually been such an incredible year. And that growth comes from leveraging other people to help you grow and being vulnerable and saying, here's where I'm stuck. I need help, which is something I'd never done before, because I thought, especially as like a female entrepreneur, that I had to just have it figured out or figure it out in order to be tough and push through. And that is, I think, the worst advice that anyone could get is to, you know, tough it out. It's leverage other people, because other people are brilliant and see, you know, the sunset through the trees, or whatever that saying is. So my journey with Stephanie is I'd hit that plateau. And I actually, when we first started working together, I didn't really know. I knew I needed something. I didn't know what it was. And as we started kind of honing in on, okay, well, these are the limiting beliefs that I have in myself. And here's the language. A lot of it in the beginning was the language that I used really stifled what I could achieve. So a lot of the things that I did, you know, I would caveat, or I would make it, you know, understated, or I'm trying to do this as opposed to I am doing it. Like, these minor little details in how we use our language can actually be huge limiting things in our lives. And so as I started to learn this, it really transformed everything that I'm doing. And that was just the beginning. It started working. And maybe, Stephanie, that's a good jumping off point to ask you a question, which is, how do people start if they don't know, if they're at the point that I was and they don't know what it is they need in order to become the better version of themselves? Where does someone start?
Wow. And everyone is different. I love merging both of what you've shared is I don't believe in identity crisis or even like stuck. I believe everything is an initiation where like every time we've shifted our identity or been even in that plateau and it's like, where do I start? It's what am I being initiated into? Because it's so unique. And it's like, again, for every person who's saying, I want to start something, what do I do first? Well, what is your unique journey? And what is, I always say this too. I moved out of the what's my why. And I think this is sort of the expansion of consciousness we're moving into right now is the question I always say is, what is the future? What is the future speaking through me? What is the future speaking through me? And like, who am I to become in order to answer that call? And when we step outside of here and then like look forward, we get just jump forward. Remember, we've done this just like tapping into more than tapping into your future self, but really tapping into the future and what is being asked of me. And so if you tap into that, then, and you hear it, then where do I start? If you can't hear it, then where do I start? So everyone's at a different starting point. What clarity do you need? Do you need clarity? Do you need strategy? Do you need mindset? Do you need purpose? Do you need to clear some trauma? And then again, the vocabulary of increase is always the best place to start. So that's what we're talking about. The vocabulary of increase. We're always increasing. We're either decreasing or increasing. And we're decreasing what we want or increasing what we want. And so I always say, when we speak the increase, we are very intentional. It's like, well, if you know that everything you're speaking is increasing, you're going to be mindful about how you say it.
Can you explain that just so that people understand more about what you're saying? When you say that you're either increasing or decreasing, right? Yeah. That's like, I am building a business, or decreasing would be like, I can't do that this week. It's just impossible, right? I explain that a little bit further.
Yeah. So this is around a sort of a body of work I've birthed called the conscious. It's a process of building conscious influence. We're always influencing our outcomes. We're always, and like I said, our story is our outcome. We're always influencing either positively or negatively. Rarely is it neutral. And I always like to say we're transcending even positive, negative, good, right, good, bad, right, wrong. Though for the 3D world, we are always influencing. Are we influencing it positively or negatively? And so through our words, vocabulary of increase, it's everything we speak, we're actually increasing. So then we say, well, am I increasing more negative or am I increasing more positive in my life? And to your example is I can't, it's not working. Okay. We're increasing that. And of course we all fall into that. And then it's like quickly shift it. Okay. What do I need to know? What information do I need right now? Where am I out of alignment? What's the next step versus
I can't, this stinks. I'm never going to accomplish this. It's too much.
The spiral.
Yeah. The spiral. I think that's just, those little shifts were actually huge leaps when I learned how to really harness the power of it.
Yeah. And I mean, we've all like met someone in our lives who, goes into every situation with that negative lens on it. And it's crazy how when it's someone else, you can feel it and see it. But sometimes when it's ourselves saying it to ourselves, we can't identify it. So I assume that would be why working with a mindset coach, because I think that we in business, we hear about coaches, we hear about mentors, and I know that mindset coaching has become a more mainstream concept. But can you explain what working with a mindset coach for people who maybe haven't before, what that looks like and how that kind of would benefit not just their personal growth, but their business.
Yeah, it's funny because I'll be called a certain type of coach in certain different situations, mindset coach or spiritual coach or business coach or executive coach or impact coach. It's all, I always say this, we're one thing, we are one thing. We're not professional in business. We are one soul in one body, and we wear different clothes. And so that's like surface, right? But underneath it's like one thing. So for mindset, to your question about why someone would want to work with a mindset coach, we all know, everyone knows when they're taking themselves out. That's just universal, I think. And we all at this point know when where our mindset is, or I don't even love to say that word so much, to be honest, because it's so much more than mindset. It's everything, right? It's what are we resonating? And so, like, I think for your first question, Tamara, also around strategy or mindset first, like getting honest with yourself. First question is like, do I internally feel like I have the capacity to do this thing that I want to do? No, I don't. Or let me try, right? And try is the first word of like mindset. Where's my head at? Am I trying it, or am I actually all in? Am I doing it? So starting to notice how you're speaking, what is the story you're telling about what you're trying to do or what you're working to do. And then, really, I think being so honest with yourself, like I know if left to my own devices, I'm going to take myself out. I know if left to my own devices, that's a great question to ask. I know if left to my own devices, I will, and then fill in the blank. And so the first step to saying, what kind of help do I need? It's what is the answer to that question?
Yeah, there's so much self-awareness that has to happen in that situation. And I think that's a piece that we're all working on a little bit every day.
If that's the hardest part, right? Is like recognizing what you need and where you're at and being honest about it. Because I don't think any of us want to really say, I'm feeling insecure about this, or that honesty, it's very easy to spot it in someone else or listen to someone else who's going through that struggle. But looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I don't know if I can do this myself. It's hard.
Yeah. And when you're working with someone, so like Tamara, you have the opportunity every day to do that self-check and to be so raw and honest. And then you know what you need to ask for, and even if you don't know what to ask for, as long as you know how you feel and can be honest and speak it and be witnessed in it, then you're creating room and space for yourself to work it out, or for someone to offer you, here. And a reframe, it could be a slightest thing, it could be a blind spot. We all have blind spots. Something I was also thinking about, and Nicole, this might resonate. Like, we've all gone through trauma in our life. Everyone, although if you're like got some of these, you've been through it. And so, one of the things that I see a lot of lately, and it's kind of permeating in the field, is a sense of learned helplessness. And like we're looking at the world and all the big things happening, and it's like, what can I do about it? And so on certain levels, we have to zoom out. We have to fade. What's the word I'm looking for? Stuttering. You have to.
This is that concussion right there.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. So after a concussion, after an injury or a health experience, or sometimes it's even like, giving birth or stepping out or having to pause for a moment, we have those times where we go through a pause. And this could be like a major one where you're on the couch, learned helplessness. Oh my gosh, I can't figure it out. Nothing's going to work. Or it could also just be a really small thing, and we're not even aware that we think we can't solve a problem. And it is this energy of learned helplessness. And it's no one's fault, because it's kind of an energy. I like to say all of our mindsets are not ours. We're tapping into some like collective energies, and we're all kind of colluding and agreeing, like this is how we play together, or don't. So I just wanted to put this piece about learned helplessness in there, because that is that energy where you feel like is it mindset I need? What do I need to get out of that place where I feel like I can't, it's never going to work for me. Right. And it's sometimes I learned helplessness that is so base in our nervous system. And there are ways to step into what I say from there. It's like stepping into our authentic power and remembering our authentic power and asking for help.
What I love about you, Stephanie, is that just like when Tamara and I talk about business and someone asks us like, what's the playbook, right? And there's not really a playbook, right? Mm-hmm. Everything is based off of where you want to go, where you're currently at, what your capacity is, who your resources are, right? There's a lot of factors that go into what that next step is. And I feel like what you're saying is the same thing we say about business, but about you personally and about your next step in your journey. And what's great about that is that I think that nowadays we are in such a society of like, go, go, go. We never take that step back, that pause to reflect. And so when you start reflecting and figuring out what is your thing that you need, what's the thing that you're holding back on. I started working with a therapist earlier this year, and I was so resistant for so long. And it's funny to me how many people will say like, wait, you told your therapist that? And it's like, yes, because if I can be open and give everything I need to this experience and be all in, they can then truly help me find that next space, right? They can truly help shine that mirror. So I think that what you're saying is like that self-awareness is hard, that you need that pause. You need that sometimes that person to help you find that, but figure out what your journey is, not what everyone else is doing. I think that's kind of the gist of where I'm getting. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, yes, right. All we want, the base level is we all want to know who we really are and what am I really here to do? Who am I and what am I really here to do? And maybe it looks like I'm a founder or it looks like I'm this or that. What am I here to do? Maybe like you're actually here to heal spaces and public markets, like whatever it is, but it's not necessarily the thing that you're doing. You know how in marketing you're not selling the features, you're selling the results, right? And it's the same thing I think in transformation. It's not really actually the role or the identity that I'm stepping into and being. It's like, wow, what if you got in touch with who you really are as this most illuminated magnetic soul, who came here with an agenda in this lifetime? What's that?
Yeah. It's beautiful. I am thrilled with this conversation. Stephanie, the reason I wanted to have you here is because I have been having so many conversations with people about how do I become the best version of myself? How do I tackle these complex problems without burning out? How do I build a business when this isn't my area of expertise, right? And all of that is, who do I want to be? And how do I get there? And so for that, my answer is, well, I don't know. You need a coach, you need a mentor, you need your mindset to be elevated to that level of capacity to handle it. And that's why you are the perfect person to talk to, because whether you're a business leader, a startup founder, a small business owner, everything we've talked about is even applicable to just any person in their life wanting to do something new, wanting to run a marathon, wanting to, become a better cook at home. There's so many things that it just takes your mindset, knowing where you want to be, and then having the team around you to help you achieve it. So that's where you come in as an excellent source. If people want to get in touch with you, how do they?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Tamara. So can I say one quick thing I want to say to that is also, it's so important when you're dealing, even with therapists, with anyone who you're having an intimate relationship with, feel out, is there a frequency fit here, and when you find that place where you trust and make sure that it is someone you trust, so that's what I always suggest. And I just also want to say, I'm an athlete. Well, I was an athlete, always an athlete, identify as an athlete. I have such a windy background, and like from law, we learned how to issue spot, and from shamanism as my practice, we learn a whole other way. And so I think it's also really important to know the the person that's going to stretch you, finding somebody where it's really comfortable to talk to, who is just going to reflect back to you what you want reflect, like kind of like ChatGPT, it'll just mirror back to you what you put in. So making sure that you're also stretching in the person that you find. And so if there is resonance, you want to check out my work, you can go to stephanietrager.com. And I also do have a masterclass that is a free gift that is actually speaking to all of these things: authenticity, purpose, identity. It's really, really this, like, whoever's navigating that identity shift right now, this is a really beautiful tool. And that is at Stephanie-Trager.com.
We'll make sure to put that in the description, put it out in the email. I recommend everyone take it. I have not done it yet, but I will be doing it. Because Stephanie, you are a light and a beautiful person. So thank you for coming on and having this conversation with us. I hope that, and I know it will resonate with so many people, and going through this journey of entrepreneurship and business ownership. So if you guys have not joined our community, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, all the places. We have our newsletter coming out. We are on all social medias. Come join us. We are a group of amazing entrepreneurs, all supporting each other, all trying to grow and trying to be the best versions of ourselves. So see you next week, Tamara. Aaron, I just had a brain fart there. See you next week. All right. All right. Bye, guys.